So YouTubers are always doing reviews about why this gun, why this gun. Well, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about why not this gun. Let's get to work. Hey guys, Work here. Welcome back to Work the Trigger. Today we're going to be covering something a little bit different. I've done reviews, I've done comparisons, but as you look across the landscape of firearms on the internet, you can see an overarching trend of Glock. Now, Glocks are good guns, they're reliable, they're consistent, they're easy to find accessories for, they're relatively affordable, but I don't carry one. So here's 6 pretty good reasons and 1 really stupid reason as to why I don't carry a Glock. So reasons number 1 and 2 kind of blend into each other. And the first part of this that I'm going to bring up is the ergonomics. Now, everybody talks about the ergonomics of a Glock and how they don't like how it fits their hand. And although I agree that most Glocks aren't really hand-shaped, I will actually say that that doesn't matter that much, especially for what they say that it matters for, and that particularly is accuracy. The inherent accuracy of a firearm frame isn't going to be affected that much by how uncomfortable you think something is. It will, however, be affected by the geometry that's created within that architecture of the frame and the ergonomics. The Glock, although it's blocky, gives you a lot of gun to actually hold on to. And although that shape does assist a little bit with recoil management in specifically the angle of the grip can also cause inconsistency when you're floating back and forth between other firearm frames. I shoot a lot, and I shoot a lot of different guns. Generally speaking, I can pick up a Glock and do pretty well with it, but I do appreciate the confidence that I have picking up something that I know isn't a Glock and that I won't be self-conscious about adjusting my grip for. Also, although the Gen 4 and Gen 5s do have a more pronounced beaver tail, it's not quite what it could be. 2 of the other firearms that I'm going to be talking about today are the CZ P10C and the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0, both of which I find a lot more ergonomically pleasing than the 19. On the CZ, the increased bolster in the back and the deep set beaver tail assist in getting a really high, really easy grip on the firearm. And what that does is that actually mitigates recoil even more than the 19, which is already a really flat shooting pistol. And the way that their grip back plates work is both good and bad. I don't like that it doesn't increase the length of pull like a Glock 19 would, but what it does is it does bulge out down here, which is going to let you transition between a more 1911 style shape that you've got here to a more Glock shaped angle. Now, even with that Glock shaped angle, you don't have the square profile, so your fingers just fit around it a lot better, getting a more complete grip around it, again lending itself to a little bit quicker follow-up shots. Those follow-up shots are the second point. As fast as Glocks are, I tend to shoot some other platforms quicker. The CZ specifically, I've had a lot of rounds through it, but the Smith & Wesson M&P series isn't far behind. The M&P also has that deep set beaver tail back here. You can see along the top here how we've got a long length of horizontal travel before breaking into that beaver tail. The Glock doesn't have that. It pretty much breaks right into the beaver tail right away, pulling down into the grip. The M&P also has a shallower angle on the grip, again lending itself to that cross-platform compatibility, but that deep beaver tail allows you to get a really nice high grip on it. And both the CZ and the M&P I find more shootable than the Glock. It's not that the Glock is uncomfortable or isn't easy to shoot long term, it's that the M&P and the CZ are just a more natural platform. Now, yes, you can train yourself into a Glock or out of the other ones, but coming in fresh from both of those, the CZ and the M&P are going to be a little bit easier to transition into and amongst versus the Glock. So the next reason that I don't carry a Glock is going to be a little bit of a show and tell. First, the M&P. Next, the CZ. And last, the Glock. Yeah. That. Glocks are notorious for not consistently dropping the mags. Now, I was accentuating the problem a little bit with that, but if you think about it, dropping the mag in this kind of a position isn't necessarily an unheard of thing. I actually have videos where I'm shooting in the cold where I pop that mag release and the mag doesn't drop free at all, meaning you've got to do the good old Glock flip. I don't appreciate that inconsistency, and I don't appreciate the conditions that you have to go under in order to reproduce that inconsistency. Now, yeah, again, I could train myself to always do the Glock flip, but if I don't have to do the Glock flip, why do the Glock flip? It's much easier just to have a gun that drops the mags. So the next reason that I don't carry a Glock 19 is something that has gotten better with the Glock 19 Gen 5, but it's still not great, and that is the accuracy. Glocks have always been a little bit less consistent in their grouping and patterns than a lot of other firearms. Now, this does lend itself to incredible reliability, having looser chambers, being able to run more various types of ammo. But what that does is that opens up your group sizes. And for a gun that every little bit of accuracy might count, I really don't want to lose any at all. The Smith & Wesson does a little bit better in this department. Acceptably better, but not like worlds better. Guns like the CZ P10C and the Walther PDP, however, are insanely accurate. The stock barrel from both of these companies can outshoot any shooter. Now, we hear that a lot, that a gun is inherently more accurate than the shooter 9 times out of 10. And while that's true sometimes, with the Glock, I've noticed. Another firearms manufacturer that I've noticed those slight variations with is SIG and their P320 line. Just moving from gun to gun of the same sizes, I can get tighter groups with something like the CZ, the Smith & Wesson, the PDP, over something like the Glock 19 or the SIG P320. And again, when we're looking at firearms in self-defense situations, which is what a carry gun specifically is for, I want every available edge that I can get. And accuracy is one of them. Now, the next reason that I don't carry a 19 is because in order to get a solid optics system on the 19 that I would be 100% comfortable carrying all the time, even into like really bad situations, I would have to get a standard one and get the slide milled. Now, this is a non-MOS version, but I would still have to get the slide milled on this, and then I'm stuck with the type of optic that I selected. I wouldn't be able to transfer back and forth. If a new optic came out that wasn't on the footprint of the optic that I was running, I would then have to switch guns, buy a new slide, etc. The MOS system on the Glocks is notoriously not a great system. It gets a little bit better with aftermarket plates, but it still has its weaknesses. A little bit ironic here that I'm talking about it because I'm running an aftermarket slide on this gun, but the CZ P10 has a substantially more robust optics plate system. The Glock, while using a single axial bar to be able to reduce side load, doesn't have any load-bearing aspects forward and backwards while the slide reciprocates. The CZ uses a cross-style boss system, which is going to give you rigidity in any direction that you try to move it, making it a substantially stronger system. Not only that, the plates that you can get from CZ are steel. They're not aluminum, they don't have inserts, they are steel plates. If you like the aluminum plates with the inserts, you can get those aftermarket just like you can with the Glock. But the CZ brand name plates are steel, which is going to give you a stronger, more robust fit. So I would take the stock optic system on a CZ over a Glock any day. Now in this case, as far as the Smith & Wesson goes, I'd still take the CZ over the Smith & Wesson. The Smith & Wesson uses a plastic plate system. I've not tried it yet, and I've not seen it a whole lot yet, so I'm not fully confident in it. In fact, there are very few systems that I would run stock out of the box. The FN509 is one that I would. The Walther PDP is one that I wouldn't. But that's why specifically I carry a CZ. I do have multiple optics-ready CZs. This is just the one that I have right now because somebody borrowed my other one. So our last actual thing that holds weight here with the Glock and why I don't carry it is the trigger. Now, although yes, the trigger has gotten better on the Gen 5 Glocks, it is still not a great trigger. Better and good are two completely different things. Now, I've said it before on my channel that in the world of striker fire guns, generally speaking nowadays, if you're really throwing too much of a fit among guns, you're really splitting hairs because all of them can be shot pretty well. That being said, I also prescribe to give yourself the best chance if you ever get into a situation. And yes, having a little bit better of a trigger will give you that better chance. The Glock trigger is just not great. The weight isn't that bad. All of these triggers come in between about 4.5 and 6 pounds, and that 1.5 pound disparity really is hard to feel. The trigger problems come really with the problem in the trigger pull profile. Now, what is that? I use the term trigger pull profile to describe the overall travel of a trigger when firing a gun. You can see the Glock's got about 3/8 of an inch of overall take. Then you hit a wall, but that wall is rather squishy. You can see I'm compressing the wall right there, and then finally it breaks, but that break is a little bit on the spongy side, and there's a lot of stack when you pull back on it, and it's just not an overly smooth, crisp trigger. Letting back out is about the best part of the Glock, and that is the audible and tactile reset. It does have a good reset, but then you're back on that wall, back to the squish, and finally back to that break. Now, the other couple guns I've got here, the M&P 2.0 in the new trigger configuration is what I would consider a better trigger than the stock Glock trigger. It does have more travel and a little bit more grit than the Glock, but the wall is substantially harder and shorter. You can see we got a little bit of creep, about half as much as the Glock, and then a nice cleaner break. And then the reset on the M&P comes out and is audible and tactile. You've got just that little bit of click right there before you've actually got the trigger pulled all the way in. You can feel the trigger on the M&P seat, which makes it really easy to stage, before a nice crisp shot. Now, in those aspects, it is going to depend a lot on personal preference on what kind of a trigger that you like. Whether you like a harder wall, whether you like the ability to stage the trigger. But with my other CZ here that has a bone stock trigger in it, don't mind the barrel, you'll see what I mean by better trigger. So with the CZ, it's got about the same travel as the Glock, but we've got substantially less stacking. We hit a hard wall, and then there's very little creep to the break. And then back after the break, we've got that crisp reset, which is audible and tactile, right back on that wall, right back to that break. And then if you want to just keep dropping bombs of guns with better triggers, we've got the Walther PDP, same travel, hard wall, right to the break. And then honestly, probably the best striker fire trigger available, the Canik TP9 SF Elite, which has minimal weight pre-travel, hard wall, right to a very crisp, no creep break with minimal over travel, and a reset right back out to that wall, right back to that break with no retake up. So although I applaud Glock for doing significantly better with the Gen 5 than they were with the Gen 4 and Gen 3, it's still a subpar trigger to me, and if I'm looking objectively at the firearms that I have the ability to carry, that is going to factor into my choice. And yes, on one of my carry guns, I do have an aftermarket trigger on here, but if I were carrying a Glock, I would still put an aftermarket trigger on it, and it still wouldn't be as good as the stock trigger on half of these other guns I've talked about. And finally, the last reason that I don't carry a Glock. It's because everybody carries a Glock. That's right, not to be like too overly hipster about it, but unfortunately that did kind of pop in there. I don't like being just a me tooer. And I definitely don't like pigeonholing myself into a channel of, I just carry Glocks. You can see how many guns that I've pulled out during this, and I have carried all of these except the Canik at one point or another. And that being said, I have carried the Glock before. But the fact that everybody else carries a Glock doesn't make me look at it as the tried and true. About the biggest bonus that offers you in the landscape of firearms is the availability of spare parts in the event of an Armageddon. In which case, I got mine. So thanks guys for watching. The reason that I don't carry a Glock 19. I hope you found this video useful. Even if it doesn't encourage you to carry one of the guns that I carry, it doesn't matter to me if it gets you thinking about the reasons that we carry the guns that we carry, weighing the pros and cons of the different aspects of them, and determining for yourself what you should carry versus what the internet gun gods tell you. If you did like this video, do me a favor and hit that like button down below. If you like what we do here and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. The channel now has channel membership. On that membership, once it fills up a little bit, we're going to be putting out behind the scenes, we're going to be doing a couple of games, and eventually some giveaways. If you're looking for a different way to help out a little bit, head over to workthetrigger.com. Over there you're going to find coupon codes, affiliate codes, links to our merch, and a link to our 3D printed gun accessories, including mag adapters for this gun, this gun, this gun, and this gun. You can also find those at WTT3D.com. Thanks guys, I appreciate every one of you, and until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.